How's it going, guys? This is Don from Prana-Tech. Today's video I'm going to show you how I built a higher performing, high output foam generator for making Aircrete. This is a much higher production than my small one that I made originally. If you watch that video, that one's much smaller for small batches, and it works great. It's a great design, but I wanted to build a bigger version, one that was simpler and easier to build, as well as a much higher output. And if I wanted to, I could do a dosing of a large batch of concrete, say for, like 1 yard of Portland cement, for casting bigger panels and things like that, where I don't have to rely on a hand mixer, where I can just have a concrete truck pull up and climb up and dose the entire truck while it mixes, put in a certain amount of volume of foam per 1 yard and have it all mix, pour it out, and save an enormous amount of labor of hand mixing concrete or Aircrete in small batches. So this is a new design. It's very simple to build. I'll go through all the components of it. It's a non-electric. My other one had an electric pump. This one is completely driven by air, so all you need is a compressor. If you're off-grid, a gas-powered air compressor, like for a contractor's setup, would work. This is one of the things that I wanted to make it simple for people to build. I'll go through all the design and show you all the different components, how I built it. That way you'll be able to build a high-performing Aircrete foam generator without having to spend thousands of dollars. Ones this big go for a lot of money, and they're very proud of their product. And a lot of the companies make really high-performing, great products, but for the average Joe, spending thousands of dollars on a foam generator probably isn't realistic. So I wanted to build one. This one isn't as cheap as the last one that I built. This one will cost you a few $100s to build it, but it's something that will last, many years, and it's really maintenance free. It's not a lot going on here. So let me move the camera. I'll get behind the camera and I'll point out all the different components and how I built it, and I'll show you how it works. Okay, here on the outside, you'll see that there are just 3 fittings. We have foam concentrate intake into the pump, and we have an output outlet right here for foam to go out to, or the foam solution, air and concentrate to come out to the foam wand. And here we have air. This is the only 3 hookups on this unit, and these are just standard. This is a bulkhead fitting with standard garden hose thread, so you can just hook up a garden hose or anything that would fit a garden hose fitting. It's a very simple setup. This one is obviously suction, so it's a low pressure. This one you do have to have a little bit higher quality hose. I'm running a reinforced nylon 5/8 internal diameter. You can get it at Home Depot. I'll show you that hose once we get it going. And this is just a standard 1/4 inch pipe thread air fitting with a little bulkhead fitting. All right, let's open it up and I'll show you what it looks like on the inside. Okay, I've opened the lid and now we can see how the system works. Basically, what happens is air comes in through the air fitting. This valve basically is the on-off for the entire system. Once you start air into the system, it will start the pump, and it will also start flowing air once this valve is opened. I have another shut-off here just for air pumping through. So at first I can turn on air, keep air out to the outflow off, and air will just go to the pump. And what that does is allow me to prime the pump first and get water flowing all the way through, and then introduce air once the pump is all primed. This system is basically just a T as it comes in. Air comes in through the air fitting. Once you start the system, it tees out to both regulators. So you have air pressure coming into one regulator. This one on the left runs the pump. This one on the right is air pressure into the actual foam wand and foam solution down here, where they meet again on the output side. This regulator is the airflow. This regulates pressure of the air. This little ball valve, I can regulate volume. I can turn any amount of volume of air into the system. That way I can balance the pressures and balance the foam output. That way I can regulate what quality of foam is coming out of the wand. This ball valve here is the output side of the pump, and this regulates volume of water flow. So between this valve and this valve, I can adjust water and air to balance the foam and get the density of foam that I need for each batch that I'm making. And I'm going to tilt the camera down a little bit so you can kind of see a little bit more of the plumbing. And at the end, I will put a schematic of the design. It looks complex with all the air lines going through here, but in reality it's just 2 regulators, a pump, and 2 T's. 1 T to break off the air to 2 regulators, and then a T to bring water and air back together on the output side. And then the inlet obviously just brings water or foam solution introduced into the pump so that it can pump it out and blend it with the air on the output side. It's a very simple system and not very hard to build. I'll go over how it works. This is a much higher quality and a much higher production foam than what I was able to do with my small one. My small one pretty much was, I could vary it a little bit as far as density, but as far as volume, it was pretty much a set. And this one I can adjust down to smaller volumes and up to really high volume if I want, in case I want to dose, you know, a whole cement truck worth of Portland cement. So let me change the camera angle here, and I'll show you the pump, and I'll show you the output side here and give you a little bit different angle so you can see. All right, so here you can see the pump. It's a air operated double diaphragm powered pump, and what it does is it uses air to oscillate between 2 diaphragms and then output out. So they basically alternate. It does have a little bit of a pulse, but it's not a big deal because we're using a foam wand and all of that gets equalized within that wand, so you don't really have a lot of pulse in the output side. It makes a nice steady stream of foam. I'm really happy with the output of this. I can't wait to start using it for making some larger batches of Aircrete. This thing is very common. That's one of the things that was the detriment of my other design. The other design is a good design, especially for just, you know, a guy making small batches of Aircrete. But the pump, a lot of people wanted to build my design and they were having a hard time finding that specific pump that I used, especially for a reasonable price. And this particular pump you can get on Amazon. They're very common. They're from China, and they're about $100 to $120, somewhere right in there. And it's such a simple design. It just uses a little piston that goes back and forth, and it just uses air. So it's a very low maintenance. There's not a lot to go wrong, and it uses no electricity. And that was one of the things where I'm going to be building in Central America my dome home. I want to be able to do everything off grid. So having one that I can just have a gas operated compressor run my whole system, that's a big benefit for me. Here you can see a different angle of air coming in, my ball valve that regulates the flow of air. It's just a T right here, 1-to-1 regulator, one goes to the other regulator. And Down below here you can see the T. This is air coming in from this regulator, and here's water output from the pump right here, regulated by this ball valve. This is just a simple T. Water comes in here, air flows in, goes through the output hose, and you can see that there's not a lot to this. It's a very simple system, very adjustable. You do need a little bit bigger compressor. You can't use this on one of the little, pancake style or something like that. My compressor, it puts out about 10 to 12 CFM at about 90 PSI, so that should give you an idea. Mine runs fine with it. It might even run with a little bit smaller compressor, but I know that this level will work. If you get a 10 to 12 CFM compressor, you'll be able to run a system like this with no problem. All right, let me change the camera and I will get this thing going and show you how it works. All right guys, so I've got my lines hooked up, and I also wanted to mention that with this new bigger output foam generator, I had to design a whole new foam wand. The one that worked with my small one wasn't big enough and it couldn't handle the output of this. So I actually built, this is like the 4th version. So I had to come up with a new design that could handle the output of what this can produce, but also I made a couple that were just too big. I made a couple that were made out of 2-inch PVC. This one's made out of 1.5 inch. So I kind of had to find just the sweet spot for what would work great with this design. So I'm gonna have another video on just how to make this foam wand, because this one is a little bit more complex than the original one that I made, but this one outputs a lot more foam and a lot higher quality foam. It's got kind of a blending screen at the end that helps to diffuse the foam and then recollect it into the straight tube here. So I'll have another video on that, and I'll show you guys how to make just the wand, because otherwise this video is going to get a little too long, and people don't like long videos. So I'm going to try to keep it as short, as sweet as I can with this. But if you want to see how to make the wand, go check that video out. Otherwise, I'm going to hook this thing up and I'll get the pump primed and show you what kind of foam this thing makes. All right, first thing I'm going to do is just turn it on and get the pump primed. You'll see it draw up the fluid. Once I see it come up to here, I know that it's going to get a lot of liquid now. I don't want to waste my concentrate, but I do want to make sure it's fully primed and ready to go. Then I will turn everything on and start the foam production. Okay, now that I have the lines primed, I'm ready to turn it on and start flowing air and water together, start making some foam. So let's crank this up and see what it does. So that's one of the things I wanted to show you, is that one of the ways you can tell that you're making good foam is when your foam starts to pile up. If it just starts to slump and run, into a big pile, when you can make big lumps, that's when you know you have your foam balanced well. You don't want it too wet and you don't want it too dry. If it's too dry, it doesn't have enough density to stay together. If it's too wet, it'll fall apart and you won't get as much air into your Aircrete, and you won't make it as lightweight as what you want to make. Right now it's just a little bit wet. I can tell because it's settling quickly. It's still got some lumps, but it is making good foam right now. I just need to get a little more air into it and a little bit less water. So I'll show you what that looks like. See how that's piling up and building up? That's what I want to see. I want to see it be able to hold shape and stay up when it's piling up as foam. What I'll do now is now that I have it balanced, I will fill up a 5-gallon drum or bucket full of foam and see how long it takes. All right, so now I'm going to show you how quick it fills up a 5-gallon bucket. This is a great way to check your dosing time. Generally, I would do it with a larger bucket, say a 45 or 55-gallon drum. That'll give you a more accurate amount of time and amount of foam, so you can see how much your foam wand and your system, once it's balanced, is putting out. That way you'll know exactly how much foam to Portland cement ratio you'll be putting in by a certain amount of time. That way it's called your dosing time. And once you have it measured out, you can tell how much you want to put into either your mixer, depending on how much Portland cement you put in your hand mixer, or all the way up to a full cement truck with just Portland cement in it, and you'll have your dosage for how much foam by how many seconds or how many minutes, depending on how much foam you want to put in there. All right, let me crank this up and I'll show you how fast this thing fills. You can see that made it in about 10 seconds. So this thing is putting out an amazing amount of high quality foam in a very short amount of time. See how the foam wants to pile up and stand up and hold its shape? That's what you want to see. You want to see it being able to hold its density and not just run out onto the ground. Okay, here's another view that I was talking about of filling up a 55-gallon drum. I've sped this up so that you can see, but this is how I check my dosing for foam whenever I want to get set up for a larger batch. This is a 55-gallon drum. It took me 1 minute and 45 seconds to fill this up. As you can see, it's making high quality, very thick shaving cream type foam. And it's piling up, and you can see how it's wanting to hold its shape. This just gives you a good view of that. Alright guys, so that's pretty much it for the new high output foam generator. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments section. I'm going to put a parts list of everything it took to build this. I also have a schematic that I've drawn up, and I'll put a link to it that you can download in the description of the video. I'd also like to say that you can build this for a lot cheaper than I did if you wanted to. You don't have to have a fancy aluminum box. That added like $100 to the cost of this build. And so you can mount this to a board, you could make just an outline frame, just, you know, so that everything is mounted securely. There's a lot of different ways you could build this for a lot cheaper. I wanted a box that everything would fit in, the foam wand and all the lines and everything, so I obviously made it as an outfit here so that it all fits together and I can just put it away when I'm done. But there are a lot cheaper ways to build this. I understand, you know, not everybody's going to spend $100 on a box. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. And if you guys have any questions, I'll gladly answer them. And hopefully you got something out of this. If you did, please subscribe to my channel. I've got a bunch more videos coming up. I'm going to have the other video for how to build the foam wand uploaded not long after this one, so stay tuned. And I've got a bunch of Aircrete projects that I'm going to be putting out that you'll be able to see. Working with another gentleman on how to blend Aircrete and hemp together. So we're going to be working on that project together. So stay tuned and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks.